First question, then, or the first candidate, let's start at this end. Let's start at Dan.
Okay.
Dan, go ahead and introduce yourself, and you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay.
Thank you, Art. You can hear me?
I can.
My name is Dan Newhouse, and I thank you very much for inviting me to be with you this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this group and about this race and about me as a candidate. I'm from the Lower Yakima Valley, between Sunnyside and Granger. My wife, she was here, somewhere back there, Carol, and I have raised our children at Jensina and Devon near Sunnyside, Washington. I'm a farmer. I grew up in the Yakima Valley, born and raised. Went to Washington State University, went through the Ag and Forestry Leadership Program, been very active in my community and my church. I was elected 4 times to the Washington State House of Representatives, and I also served for 4 years as the director of the Washington State Department of Agriculture. So the issues in the 4th District are my issues. I represented a large portion of this district in the State House in Olympia. So I understand the issues people face because they're my issues as well. What are some of those issues? We have a lot of things facing us as far as a nation and a region. First of all, the debt that continues to mount, our national debt, is almost $18 trillion today as we speak. We're mortgaging our future, our kids' future, our grandchildren's future. Other things that are very important, the Affordable Care Act, something that in its title, affordable, is not accomplishing. People up and down this district tell me this is not the solution they need. We need to address this, bring it back to market-based solutions where people can afford the insurance coverage they need, get the care they need at an affordable price. Other things that are very important to this region are water. As I said, I'm a farmer. Water in the Yakima Valley, water in the Columbia Basin is huge. None of us would be in this room were it not for the water that we have from the projects that have brought irrigation water to the land here in eastern Washington. I want to fight to continue to bring the federal government in as an active partner so that we can continue to have the projects we need, the water we need into the future. Another issue that's very important to me, I'm very passionate about, is fixing our immigration policies in this country. It's a travesty. We need answers. We need safe borders. We need to get that fixed. I have a proven track record of public service. I'm a business person, and I'm conservative. And I ask for your vote this August 5th. And thank you again very much for having me. Thank you.
Well, my name is Glenn Stockwell. I live in Ritzville, Washington. I've lived there for 38 years now. I was born and raised in Yakima. I lived in the country majority of my life, except when I was serving Uncle Sam. I've been in 2 branches of service. I've brought in some multi-million-dollar projects in years past. I've worked for some very wealthy people. Raymond Hansen from Spokane, who used to go around the world putting in irrigation projects. I used to work with Raymond, and he went around to 40 different countries putting them in. What I'm going to do is, I've been promoting for the last 5 years, and I've always had to go through people, and it's very hard to work through people that are not aggressive, and a lot of them are small-minded. But anyway, regardless of that, I'm running for Congress here to bring in the second half of the Columbia Basin Project, along with the Snake River Irrigation Project and the Yakima Basin Project. I'm not against, I was misquoted in the Yakima Herald, I'm not against going out and getting federal money. In 2009, I went back to Washington, D.C. twice while they were handing money out like candy back there. I was trying to get enough money for the entire project. But I'm going to go in a different direction because we've been waiting 69 plus years for the federal money, the federal government to fund this project. And I think somewhere along the line, we're looking at insanity here. So the route I'm going to take is I'm going to put into legislation, new legislation for a Social Security offering that everyone across the nation will be able to put additional monies in to reduce their taxes. They'll also have caveats there where they can pass those monies down from one generation to the next through the family. The stock market works on roughly $50 billion a day on an average day, and we can go through the New York Stock Exchange and international exchanges and come up with the money for this project. Thank you very much.
My name is George Seacott. I am from Benton County, the Tri-Cities area. I have lived there most recently for 12 years. My wife and I returned to the Tri-Cities where she grew up. Her grandfolks on both sides have lived in this area since the 1940s. Her grandpa was a World War II vet and got some land in Connell that was irrigated, and her other grandpa came up here to work on Hanford during World War II. But I am running for Congress to give people a choice. And it's really a choice about the nature of representation. The nature of representation that I offer to folks is an expert's perspective. For the past 4 years, since health reform has been involved in this country, I've been hired by clients literally around the country, not just here locally, but I travel around the country and I teach other lawyers what this law does, and I teach lots of clients how they can comply with this law. And I'll be quite frank with you, I got tired of teaching folks about a law that seemed to me to be nonsensical, non-workable, and problematic. And so, when you're teaching in these crowds, they're paying you to teach, you've got to be politically correct and not try to make political comments about how bad the law is. And I basically couldn't do it anymore. So I'm running one to bring my expertise to help solve the health reform crisis. Everybody agrees it's a crisis to be solved. I bring a degree of skill that is unmatched in this race to be able to deal with that from an expert's perspective. Number two, the areas of law that I deal with, and I'm an attorney if I didn't mention that to you, a business lawyer, there's a single federal law that deals with most employer-provided health care and pensions. Well, it just so happens that our federal budget, 50% of our expenditures are health care and retirement expenditures. These are areas that for 20 years I have been helping employers manage, help them protect benefits while cutting costs. Our nation needs to do the same thing. And again, I am offering to the voters an expert's perspective to solve this problem. Number three, I went to a law school that was founded just 40 years ago. Actually, I realize I've been saying 40 and I was wrong. It's 41. Started in 1973. It's the Brigham Young University Law School. The school was founded for the specific purpose of training lawyers who would become statesmen and defend the Constitution. And I would suggest to you that right now is a time in our nation's history when the Constitution needs to be defended. We can talk about our God-given rights, rights like the free exercise of religion, which is why a number of our founding fathers came to this country, rights like the Second Amendment right, several of these God-given rights that are disrespected in our nation's capital today. We need, stop, I apologize. I'm George Seacott. I would greatly appreciate your vote. Forgive me for not noticing the red card. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Senator Janaea Holmquist, and what an honor and pleasure it is to join you here this evening. I'm here tonight to earn your support to serve you in Congress. And as a mother, wife, and taxpayer, I have real concerns about our national legacy of nearly $18 trillion of debt, a struggling economy, and a constant attack on our constitutional rights and Christian principles. I think our next generations deserve better. And we're all tired of government not living within its means and just asking for more and more of your hard-earned money. Now, in the Washington State Senate, I was able to help lead the charge to ensure that Washington State became the first state in the nation to adopt a 4-year constitutional balanced budget amendment. And folks, if we can get that done in our liberal state, I know we can accomplish it in Congress. As your state senator, I'm proud that I've never voted for a tax increase on Washington citizens. So you can count on me to make government start living within its means and always reminding them who's footing the bill, you the taxpayers. Now, regardless of what issues we get into tonight, whether it be Obamacare, education, defending our veterans, making sure our hydropower dams are protected, jobs, the economy, what you gain with me is a proven track record to back up my promises and my commitments and my Republican ideals and ideas. And beyond that, I've been able to show you can stand strong on your core principles and still get things accomplished. Also, I've had an opportunity to be able to lead in both the majority and the minority. I wasn't always the chair of the Commerce and Labor Committee. Before then, facing great challenges, I was in a super minority status. And even at that point, I was still able to reach across the aisle, build coalitions, and pass historic workers' comp reform that helped improve our business climate. I would be honored to receive your vote. I'm Janaea Holmquist.
I'm Clint Didier. I'm a farmer, I'm an ex-football jock, and I'm back to the farm. I got to live the American dream. I want every child, every generation to come to have that same shot at the American dream. We the people. We the people. After the Bible, the first 3 words are the most powerful document in all of mankind. This is our country. We have to have the courage and the fortitude to take it back. Charlton Heston said, the American dream is not success or riches, it's freedom. Freedom. Our freedoms are being taken from us today as we speak. I was just in Jackson Hole meeting with the Freedom Works. Yes, I got their endorsement, and they've got a lot of money. They're supposed to be riding into town someday. I don't know when they're going to show up, but I'm hoping it's soon. But I got to talk to Mike Lee, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, he gave a presentation about 42 Democrat senators showed up with a bill to take away your First Amendment right. Patty Murray and Cantwell were both on it. They want to censor books, they want to censor speech, they want to censor radio, and they want to censor TV. If we don't stand and fight now, they will trample on every one of our Bill of Rights. Every amendment we have, they're trying to take away our 2nd. They've already intruded on our 4th. They're coming after our 6th. And when we talk about tort reform, we have to be very careful that we don't lose a jury of our peers. And by God, when it comes to guns, I don't want no judge deciding whether or not I have a gun. I want a jury of my peers. In the last forum, one of the candidates spoke of a judge determining that. No judge is going to determine that for me. Like Charlton Heston, they'll have to take it from my cold, dead hands. I'm Clint Didier, didierforcongress.org.
Hey, thank you all for being here. My name's Gavin Syme. I'm from Ephrata. I'm here with my wife, Sandra, my 3 kids. We have a small business over there. And I'm running for Congress because America is losing its freedom and it's losing its jobs, and we need to get legal. What do I bring to the table that's unique? What I bring to you today is a real plan, and a real plan starts with 100% constitutional voting. Every election season, we see lots of silver-tongued politicians making lots of promises, and our lack of being the sentinels of liberty, of holding their feet to the fire, of making sure they're 100% constitutional, has got America where it is today. We're losing our liberty. And it's our duty to stand up for that for our children and for our grandchildren. A real plan is 100% constitutional voting, and when I say 100%, I mean 100%. Shall not infringed, be infringed means exactly what it says. We need to get legal. We need to get rid of Obamacare. We need to get the federal government out of our lands, out of our health care. We need to get them within the boundaries of the Constitution. A real plan continues into standing on principle. Liberty has no cooperation with tyranny. When good works with evil, the evil inevitably overcomes the good. We need representatives who will stand beside us, who will stand toe-to-toe with tyranny. Not just sitting in Congress, sitting in their comfy leather chair and voting, but standing up. And we need a plan that continues to unstoppable conversations. We need representatives who will stand up and call out the corruption and name names and light the brush fires of liberty across this nation. It's time to get legal. It's time to take America back. My name's Gavin Syme, and I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Glenn, let's come back to your end of the table for the first question. We hear conservatives called a lot of different things. There's rhino Republicans, and there's this and that, and there's the other thing. What makes you a conservative, Glenn?
Well, I want to set the record straight on something just before I answer you, if you don't mind. I've been in all 3 parties, and the one thing I've found that there's patriots in every party, And unless you cross the lines, you'll never find that out. But to answer your question, I live a debt-free life. Everything I own is debt-free. I have money in the bank. I have no one over my shoulder looking to be paid. I'm very proud of that. I don't believe in going into debt unless there's a specific reason to do it. And that's why I'm promoting using existing revenues to finance this project. It's time to quit waiting on the federal government, and that's what I've done in my life. I've structured my life to where I'm beholden to no one other than you if you elect me. Thank you.
Over to you, George.
Same question.
Yes.
I'm just worried I'm going to trip here. That's why I keep going to the front. I apologize.
George, I wonder if you'd stay in the back just for if we do so much traveling, we're not going to get through many questions
great.
here.
Why am I a conservative? I think first you've got to distinguish what's the difference between a conservative and a liberal.
The question was, what makes you conservative?
Right. And I'm just saying, why am I a conservative? You've got to say, what's the difference between a conservative and a liberal? I think at their core, in this nation, liberals look to government to solve their problems, and conservatives look to themselves to solve their problems. We know that if left alone, we can raise our children to be good, productive citizens. We can monitor their education and make sure that they're doing well. We can, teach them to have jobs. We can hold jobs ourselves. We can provide for ourselves. This is the basic path of life that we conservatives follow. Now, are there circumstances where there might be blips along the road? Yeah, there are. And is the government there to possibly help in an occasional blip along the road? Sure. But the distinction between a conservative and a liberal is, what is that role of government? And we all know as conservatives that the role of the federal government, which all of us are striving to participate in, is very carefully and narrowly denoted in our Constitution. There are specific rights granted to the federal government and none others. And when the government begins encroaching and trying to act in ways that are not permissible under the Constitution, we've got to restrict that. When the balance of powers gets out of whack, we've got to restrict that. So this belief in the Constitution, belief in self-sufficiency, a desire to be self-sufficient rather than to have the government micromanage my life, these are the things that make me a conservative, along with belief in traditional values. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Janaea Holmquist, a proven conservative for lower taxes, less regulations, and limited government. And in those three phrases, that basically nails down why I'm a conservative. Now, the difference between, I think, me and quite a few of these other candidates is, again, I have that proven track record to back up my conservative nature and my Republican ideals, such as lower taxes. I have never voted for a tax increase on Washington citizens, and I think that's really important to make sure that you have representation that protects your wallets. And, one of the greatest honors of my life has been serving you in the Washington State Senate. I think God has blessed me with that experience under my belt. I've been able to go to bat for you to protect not only you, your wallets, but also your rights. So again, on rights, whether it be going to bat for your constitutional rights, I prime-sponsored an amendment for our 10th Amendment states' rights to try to protect us from Obamacare because we knew that train was a-coming. So I went to bat for you there, consistently with your property rights, including water rights. Just this session alone, I stood up for your personal liberties and helped lead the charge to pass landmark drone oversight legislation that, oh, by the way, side note, our governor vetoed, and so we're going to have to revisit that one. So again, I am a proven conservative for lower taxes, limited government, and less regulation, and I would be absolutely honored to receive your vote. Thank you.
Well, what makes me a conservative? This right here, the Constitution. By sticking and adhering to the Constitution, and then sticking and adhering to the Republican platform. Marriage, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Everything that's in the platform that comes from you, the grassroots, either we stand by it or we get out of the party because we're not a Republican. Today, we have a lot of people claiming to be conservative, And yet we have lawlessness happening with our president. This is a representative republic, a government of laws. You break the laws, you go to jail, you pay a fine. Today we have everybody just trampling over the laws because our president's not doing it. It's good for everybody. We have to get back to adhering to the rule of law, first and foremost. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to get the size and scope of this government under control. It's too big. In 1960, we had a little over 100 agencies. Today, we have 1,300 agencies. The second half of the Declaration says, one of the biggest complaints we had against the king, he has erected a multitude of new offices, sent out his hither swarm of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance. If that's not what's happening today in America, I don't know what is. We have to get rid of these agencies. I have joined the Liberty Coalition back there. We are going to start defunding these agencies, just like they did the IRS this week. We're going after the EPA, Department of Education, and every one of them until we get this government under control.
Oops, sorry. Let me pick that up for you. What makes me a conservative? You know, it's interesting because that word has changed a lot over the years, but in the modern terminology, let's talk about being conservatives, let's talk about being Republicans. The Republican Party didn't invent the term Republican. We were Republicans when we founded this country because we upheld the principles of the Republic. And the Republican Party many years ago was founded on those principles. And sometimes people will come up to me because I'm fiery and passionate and I take things head on and they'll say, well, Gavin, are you really a Republican? And I'll pull out this little Constitution and I'll say, this is our Republic right here. And I'm going to step on a few toes with this one, but if you don't uphold what's in this Constitution, you are not a Republican. And you're not holding the principles and the values of our God-given liberty that this nation was founded on. We need to get back to the foundations of America. Liberty is not the fringe, liberty is the foundation. Government agencies from the federal to the state to the local that think they can just make up laws willy-nilly, that they can control every aspect of our life contrary to this Constitution. That's not law, that's anarchy. Now that's funny because people sometimes like to call me an anarchist because I uphold the principles of our liberty. But anarchy is a government that refuses to follow the law that we the people placed upon them. We have a Congress of legislative eunuchs right now. And a lot of those claim the name Republican. Now I'm a Republican, but I don't care much for party politics. What I care about is my children and your children being free and not living as slaves to tyranny. I'm not interested in political silver-tongued words that say I support the Constitution and limited government, and here's what I'm going to do to violate that. You support our Constitution and our republic. End of story. And if you do not, you have violated your oath and you're a criminal, and it's time to start removing those who have violated that oath. Thank you.
I believe in a government by the people and for the people. I believe in a smaller government, a more efficient government. I believe in individual responsibility, not the government taking care of every single need for all the people that in this country. I believe in less taxes, being more efficient, slowing the growth of government, making the growth of government stop, making it smaller. I was born a Republican. I've lived all my life a Republican. And I will die a Republican. You know, I've been in Olympia for about 10 years, 12 years. And I've seen the path that liberals want to take our state and our country down. I've fought against the efforts that they're making, the things that they're trying to do. And I tell you, it's a constant battle. We need every Republican, every conservative to join the army, to fight, because we're losing. We need all of you. That's why I'm glad to see so many of you people in the room here today representing the Republican Party, the conservative Republican Party. We need to reestablish ourselves in this state and in this country. And I'm very proud to call myself a conservative Republican. Thank you.
We're going to add a little tag on to the last question, and I would ask you to change your schedule a little bit and only use 1 minute for this one. Should go quick. And the question is, where aren't you in line with the current party platform? Where aren't you in line with the current party platform? I didn't write it. Please. Great. Thanks for doing that.
To the best of my knowledge, I've read the party platform, and I think I'm in line with it in every regard.
And I have read the party platform many a times, and I too am in line with it entirely. Thank you.
That's why I'm running as a Republican. I have no beef with the platform. I agree with every part of it.
I concur. The Republican Party platform is really solid, and I agree with it 100%. The problem is we have a lot of Republicans in office who, they say they agree with it, but they're not voting in agreement with it. And I would encourage everybody to look up your representatives, look up a site like the Freedom Index, find out what the constitutional rating is of those people, how much they're following that platform. One of the things that makes me unique in this race is that I challenged Doc Hastings back in December before he retired because his constitutional voting record was 56%. And in a nation of liberty, that's not good enough. The platform is solid. Read it and start holding our representatives accountable to it.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I too agree with the party platform. Actually, I've helped write platforms, and so I would concur with the rest of my colleagues that it's solid.
Well, as far as I know, I'm not against anything in the platform, but I want to be honest because I have a thing when people that work with me, you get to tell one lie, and as soon as you're caught with one lie, you're out the door. So I turned in some paperwork to the Douglas County, or to the Grant County group over in Douglas County when we had our forum over there, and for some odd reason they didn't endorse me, but they never did tell me why. So I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. I've served in our military. I'm probably the most thriftiest person you'll ever find up here. But anyway, I honestly don't know what the answer is, but be sure and check it out. As far as I know, I don't have a liberal bone in my body. I'm against abortion. I'm in for small government, et cetera. I just honestly never did get an answer from why they didn't. And also Gordon and I were not endorsed, and we were both the only two members that have served in the military. So I honestly don't know.
Janae, I think you're on deck for this one. Ready. What is your solution for illegal immigration in Washington State? And a tag onto that, not at the border, but in Washington State.
Okay, and the time on this one?
2 minutes.
Well, first off, I'd like to call the issue what the issue is. It's not about immigration, it's about illegal immigration. And while a lot of people want to paint this as a mutually exclusive issue in regards to needing a workforce, that we either have to have an open border for a free-for-all or you close it down altogether, I just don't think that's right or accurate. I think there's no reason why we can't have both a secure border and a plentiful workforce. I grew up on a farm too, so I do know the importance of making sure you have folks to pick the crops and make sure that those crops are going to get to market. So I understand the importance of that. But what we've got here, first off, is the only reason this is an issue right now is because of inaction by our current congressional delegation and lack of leadership in DC. So I'm a little frustrated right now, and I think we need some folks over there that can boot them in the tail and get moving on this immigration issue. And to be quite honest, I think a lot of this could be solved if we just actually implemented the laws that are on the books. And we're not doing it. And then when you actually see leadership through throughout our states. One state comes to mind where they actually tried to implement the letter of the law when it comes to immigration. What happens to them? They get sued by the Obama administration, by their own federal government, which is ridiculous. Bottom line, folks, there's no reason why we can't have a secure border. I've done my homework. I know how much it's going to cost us to secure our border per mile, where we can reduce the agency budgets to pay for it, so I'm not increasing your taxes. And then I'll go into the fact that you shouldn't need to hire a lawyer to immigrate, and a small grower shouldn't need to be able to have to be hiring a lawyer to be able to navigate the temporary worker visa programs. And so we've got to revamp that as well, and I look forward to digging into this issue. Thank you.
Well, we certainly have a mess on our hands. Now, this is our Constitution. It's the supreme law of the land. It's what gives us our sovereignty. In order to have a sovereign nation, you have to have secure borders. We do not. Now, we have a health epidemic going on because there are diseases like leprosy, scabies, TB, you name it. They were talking on Fox News the other night. They're coming across the border. But more importantly, we have a national security breach. There are terrorists crossing that border, getting ready to hit us. We have to secure the border. The question involved about the immigrants in our state, how are we going to take care of this? Well, to secure the border, we need, and I can do it without spending a dime, we put our military down on the border. Bring those boys, those young men and women home, and let's put them on the border. Let's quit policing the world, put them on the border, ask for an easement, and let them train down there with live ammo. Nothing will cross the border. Second, in our state, we ask everyone that's here illegally, and they're not illegal immigrants, they're illegal aliens. An illegal immigrant would be coming here to become a citizen. These are illegal aliens. We ask them to come forward. If they don't come forward and we find them, we deport them immediately. We have 30% of our prisons full of them. We make a deal with Cuba and ship them down there and let them prison them. It'll cost us a lot less money. Get them out of our prisons because we're paying a lot of tax dollars for them. 3, when they do come forward, they go to the back of the line and they pay a hefty fine. They got all this money, they can pay a hefty fine. 4, then they get in the line, and we got to quicken the process for people to become citizens. We have people here that have been here forever, and we got to give them a path to citizenship. If they've been here paying taxes and being part of the society, let's give them that pathway because we are a nation of immigrants. Now, this is not that tough of an issue, but we're making it tough by no action.
Now, the question asked was in relation to Washington State, and I think it's important to note that, of course, we're running for federal office, and we don't control the Washington State legislature, but as a federal representative who really believes in the unstoppable conversations, I love seeing states asserting their authority and their self-governance, and I think we should encourage our states, when the federal government is failing, to start stepping up and saying, if you're not going to do it, we will. Now, in the larger sense, not just Washington, but all over America, the immigration problem is a fiasco. And let's zoom out a little bit. Let's take in the big picture. The reason our borders are not secure is not because we don't have the resources and cannot secure them. It's because we have a lawless criminal administration. We have a lawless president who should be impeached. We have We have a Congress, a Speaker of the House who refuses to take a stand. We have people playing crony politics. But if you want to zoom out to the big picture, let's go back to April 17th, 1907. Did you know that on that day, 11,200 people immigrated through Ellis Island, New York? Now, when you came through there, it took 3 to 5 hours. That's all it took. And it didn't cost a dime to become a permanent resident. Not a citizen, but a resident, to be a part of the American dream. You know what was different from all our quota systems and a decade to immigrate legally? There was no entitlements. You didn't come here and get freebies. If we want to address this, number one, we have to secure the border. We have to restore the rule of law. Number 2, we have to end the illegal entitlement. Stop taking money off of our children's tables to give to people who come here illegally. And number 3, we are a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of compassion. It should not be hard to come here legally. It should not be hard to come here and get a work visa. It should not be hard and expensive to be a part of the American dream. We need to streamline the process and make it reasonable so people can come here and be a part of that. Thank you.
Well, I, for one, am glad to hear the passion about this issue, because that tells me that we're closer to a solution than we've ever been in this country. Our immigration policies, frankly, are an embarrassment for a great country like the United States of America. They need to be fixed. They're not working. They're not working to keep the bad guys out, coming across the border, those people that want to do us harm. And they're not working to let the good people in that want to build the American dream, that want to be a part of this great country, to take those jobs that aren't being filled by Americans and help the employers that are looking for those people and that they need so desperately. So how do we do that? We need a system that does both. Secure the border, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Stop the illegal flow. But then we also have to have a system in place that allows those people to come across here legally, give them legal status so that we know who's here, so we can track who's here, so that we know that those bad guys aren't here, that people are here legally. We've had background checks. The people that are here already, what do we do about them? We have to put them through a system that proves that they're not a threat to our country. Penalties, background checks, learning English would be a good idea. Those kinds of things. Give them legal status. End this underground society that we have in all of our communities. It's not healthy. It's not a good dynamic for any of us. Get us back to where immigration becomes a positive thing in this country. Help build our economy and do it in a legal way where business people like me do not have to rely on coyotes, which is a word I'm becoming to hate, for their labor force. It's just a terrible system. We can do it, and I'm glad to hear people talking about solutions. It needs to be done. I'm so frustrated with our Congress right now for not doing this. It's something that I want to do day one when I get to Washington, D.C.
Well, we had several forums now, one in Richland and one in Yakima, and I have come up, and the main thing I came up with originally was that I'm going to Congress. I used to fight when I was younger, and I will take the podium. I will call for a 219 votes to impeach Obama. The problem with the border and et cetera, and with the, okay, I'll eat it. The problem is of course Obama and Holder and et cetera. You know, they're lawless. So there's no way that we're actually going to fix it. But what we need to do is, I agree, and we've all discussed this at different forums, is put the troops down along the border and stop the flow. We're actually paying as Americans. They went out for contracts to hire people to shuffle these kids across our border. You and I are paying for this through Homeland Security. That's a little known secret. But what we need to do is give, I agree with the panel here, we need to give the people to come out of the darkness, apply for citizenship, give them a method to do it, to become legal. And if they don't become legal within a certain time frame, we need to ship them out of country, back home. And I met on Tuesday of this week with the Adams County prosecutor to find out how we could impeach Obama and cuff him up and send him to prison if there was a legal method to do it. But the problem is what I've been promoting for the last 2 years is we need to impeach him, imprison him, and put Joe Biden into office. Everyone laughs every time I say that, but we have a process. You can't sidestep the process. It worked for Nixon. We have to use it now on Obama. Thank you.
Thank you. Another thing that differentiates me in this race, in addition to my deep expertise in the legal area, is that I've published for the voters of the 4th District a contract with Eastern Washington. And I'd like to read to you what the contract is. It deals with the 3 major platforms of my campaign, and it puts forward 10 specific pieces of legislation that I would champion as your congressman to solve. And I have a solution in here on immigration. I'd just like to read it to you. The American Immigration Reform Act will secure our borders in order to defend our nation from illegal immigration. The act will enforce stiff provisions for immediate deportation of all who enter our country illegally to commit crime or to take advantage of our social safety net. The act will require a market-based visa system for immigrants who can demonstrate the ability to make positive contributions to our U.S. economy and who can avoid all criminal actions, permitting such individuals to be able to work in the U.S. legally. The act will result in a realistic number of new agricultural worker visas available each year, determined by employers and workers rather than by centralized government bureaucrats. The act will include provisions allowing those who enter our country legally for higher education to be able to obtain visas for work in the U.S. after completing their degrees in order to contribute their technical skills to our economy. So Washington has a number of immigration issues. You just need to know that enforcing the current laws is not enough, because right now in the state of Washington, we get about 5,000 ag worker visas a year. I have one client that needs 5,000 ag worker visas a year. We need a massively greater number of visas in order to have a system that can work legally. Should the government be deciding how many visas we have? Doesn't make any sense. When has the government ever planned an economy well? Employers should be able to offer jobs to folks who want to come up, and if they come up, they should be able to have a work visa system to work through. When we get a new system that works, we'll have a secure border, we'll have people coming and going, we'll know who's coming and going, and then we've got the second issue of taking care of the folks who are already here. And we'll have to work through that and figure out a solution there. I think what the logical thing is that we would make them work through the same visa system here. It doesn't make sense to pay to send them back, which is what we'd have to do. So they'll work through the visa system here. If they work through it, great. If they don't, then we deport them. Thank you.
Next question, again for 2 minutes. It's about water. In your district, you have one of the best bread baskets in the country, and that is the Yakima Valley. We have a major problem, and that is we are in a rain shadow. Our water only comes from the mountains between Snoqualmie Pass and White Pass. There's been a proposal in the last few years for a reservoir called Black Rock. What is your view on making this a reality?
Black Rock. It's a great idea. But right now, we're fighting to retain our rights to water. We have agencies in here, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, just listed the White Bluffs bladderpod as an endangered species. Now the Farm Bureau, my wife and I and other members, we raised money. And we gathered up all the bladderpod species throughout the state. We went to Oregon and got some samples, and we went over to Idaho, and we took it over to Idaho State University. They did a DNA analysis. They said there's no difference. It's the same plant. It only has a yellow flower because it's pulling out of the bluffs at Ringgold alkali, and it flowers yellow. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife says, no, it's a species of its own. We proved that it's not. They said, we can't recognize your study because it wasn't done by an official agency. And then they listed it as an endangered species, and they attribute its demise to the Columbia Basin Irrigation Project. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a fight to hang on to our water. That's why I'm going to DC. It's because these agencies have to be reined in. I'm going to drop some bills immediately to start defunding them, just like they did the IRS this week. We have to trim their ears and their hair back. These people are in there and they are coming after us every phase, every industry in this country. Coal, timber, mining, farming, you name it, they're coming after us. They're trying to breach our dams. I'm all for the Blackwater Reservoir. And I don't want the federal government in here funding it. We need to get these agencies out of here. We do it ourselves. We keep the money and the resources here. We can do it. We're Americans. We can do it ourselves. We don't need the federal government.
Absolutely. Washington's a beautiful state. We got tons of resources. We got lots of agriculture, and that's our backbone. But I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't even trust Congress to boil hot dogs properly. The last thing I want them managing is our water. The last thing I want them managing is our resources. We need to throw the federal government out of managing things that they are not mandated in the Constitution. Now, the 10th Amendment says that the federal government can do what's in the Constitution. That's it. Everything, and I mean everything else, is reserved to the people and to the states. Why did we do that? Because the framers back in 1788, the debate and the concern was that our federal government would grow into tyranny. Oops. So here we are. We have to start asserting our authority over government. We saw this down at the Bundy Ranch. I was down at the Bundy Ranch when the federal government almost opened fire, almost started the Second American Revolution. Over what? A tortoise grazing? They were down there violating the law. It wasn't about grazing or water. It was about criminals in government trying to exert their tyranny over we the people. Since then, there's counties and even whole states that are looking at telling the BLM and these agencies to get out. We need to start cutting off the agencies, cutting off the EPA. And you know what? Why are we letting the federal government take our valuable resources and manage them and control them and then sell them back to us? Why don't we say, wait a minute, those are ours. If you want some, you can come buy them from us. Now get out of our state and start following the law. If it's in this Constitution here, the federal government could do it. That's the limited power. But if it's not, they can't. And it's that simple. Thank you.
As I said, I'm from the Yakima Valley, and so this issue is something that I've been working on for a long time. I support BlackRock. I worked, one of the first things when I was in the legislature is I supported legislation to conduct a feasibility study of building that reservoir. I support increasing available storage in the Yakima River Basin. It's something that we haven't built a new reservoir since 1933. Populations have grown. Demands on from agriculture have grown, and certainly demands for in-stream flows for the environment and fish are taking a big share of the water that we already have. But BlackRock's got some issues that need to be worked out first. One small thing is that it involves taking water from the Columbia River, something that some of you folks might have an interest in, at least an opinion that you want to have expressed about that. It's got some other issues. It's got some cost things that have to be worked out. So in the meantime, I support the Yakima River Integrated Plan. Things that we can do now, things that we can work on as far as conservation, fish passage, yes, new storage, things that we can do in the short term that get us a long ways down the path of a solution. That's something I believe the federal government does have a role in. This has national and regional significance. The economy of Central Washington is a big part of the economy of the United States. Did you know we're the third largest exporter of agricultural products in the country? It's huge. The impacts to our economy nationwide are great, and our communities need that water. So I think there is a role, and I think there's some solutions on the table that I will support while in Congress to make those dreams a reality.
Well, in 2009, I've been promoting the completion of the Columbia Basin project now for 5 years, but I actually started in 1986. I was a member of the Columbia Basin League and et cetera. I grew up in Yakima. My grandfather worked on the canal coming out of Rimrock Lake, and I used horse and wagons at times. But anyway, the water will cure the problem we have here in Washington State, and we have plenty of it. Initially, I started working with Senator, then State Representative Mark Schessler, he turned to be Senator, in 1999, and I kept pushing him to get involved, to get the governor involved in this issue. And I'm actually the person that generated the first meeting between the Department of Ecology and the Bureau of Reclamation many years ago. I also have the documentation to prove that out of this gray head came the idea of putting in the siphon over in the coulee. And the Department of Ecology, after they did their EIS studies and et cetera, that's exactly what they did 8 years after the fact. But anyway, regardless of any of that, what we need to do is get control of this project and take it away from the federal government. They have been writing this project now for, I'll be the third generation. If it doesn't happen pretty quick, I'll be in the grave. But anyway, when I go back to Congress, I'm going to be going back there with a plan of financing this project. In 1988, I was here at the lake out here at a meeting with the Columbia Basin Development League. Tom Foley and everyone was out there at the time frame. The room was totally full of people, but they came to a point where they could not get the money. I've told we have some fine people up here on the panel. I'm getting to know all of them. And I've told every one of them, I'll tell you just as plain as I told people in 1986, when I told them I was going to go out and bring a project to Adams County. And 2.5 years later, it took place, and we put it in a landfill, etc. You'll find my name in the Seattle contract. But anyway, I'm telling you firmly that if I am elected, I will bring your water here because I know where the money's at. We've been waiting on money. We can do it locally with pre-existing money and no new taxes. Thank you.
Water is the gold of the 21st century, and I'm in favor of a new Fort Knox right here in Washington State. I think everybody's in favor of more water storage. We hear that commonly. The real issue is just how are we going to pay for it? That's really all anybody cares, or that's the only thing that seems to be in dispute. Now, let me give a side note. Columbia River water and Yakima River water are very different. There's a reason the feds are involved with Columbia River water. Why? Because it's an international river. Under the Constitution, the feds have the right to draft international treaties, and there is an international treaty dealing with water that comes out of Canada in the Columbia. So the federal involvement in the Columbia River is proper, it's outlined in the Constitution, and it's a reasonable exercise of federal authority. Now, Yakima River, not the case. It's not international water, it's state water, and the Yakima River is indeed governed by state law. Now, if you're going to start in Black Rock bringing in Columbia River water, yeah, we're going to mess it up, okay? We're going to bring that federal law water into the state water. So maybe there's a way to build some water storage in the Yakima River Basin without causing that conflict and bringing the feds in more. Finally, I'd just like to make one comment. Where's the money going to come from? Well, we can learn, you all may know Darrell Olson from the Columbia Snake River Irrigators, okay? He's sitting on $35 million in private money right now that he has developed to finish building out the Columbia Basin Project. If he can develop private money to finish the Columbia Basin Project, I'm relatively confident that we can come up with some public partnerships to develop private money to finish the Yakima River Basin or to create some water storage solutions there. So I think we're all in agreement that the feds don't have the budget to do it. That's why nothing's happened so far. Let's look at some of these public-private partnerships that have worked in so many other areas and find a way to do it without adding to our national debt. We're all in agreement we need it. Let's just find creative ways to fund it. Thank you.
Well, first off, calling the Yakima Valley the breadbasket, I just have to put in my shout out for the Columbia Basin farmers. Grant County, of course, being the #1 potato producing county in the nation, so we at least get potato basket. And bottom line, this all leads and is all focused on agricultural security. And that's one of my top priorities. Is I really feel in my heart that the day that our nation has to depend on a foreign nation for our food supply will be the day of our demise. And to ensure that that never happens, we have to make sure and get adequate water into the hands of our agricultural experts and our growers that know exactly what to do with it without government telling them to do it. And when it comes to water, I don't think we have a water supply problem. We have a water storage problem. And what we really need to be doing is working towards solutions that's going to allow us to have water storage for 50 to 100 years. And I am in support of many proposals on the record that reach and are moving towards that direction. Most recently, the Yakima River Basin Enhancement Project. And I do think that fell a little bit short. There was a little bit too much money going to mitigation, which I fought against, but it's still a step in the right direction. And I'm on the record of supporting the Odessa Aquifer, groundwater recharge, as well as Black Rock. And then, of course, I was able to also help get some money, your money, by the way, taxpayer money, for the Yakima River Basin Enhancement Project, which we are now seeing start to move forward. So water storage is our future. We've got to have water as the backbone of our economy. And bottom line, I will be your advocate, and I've already got the proven track record to go into bat for this property right that is so sacred, and I would love to be your warrior in Congress.
Let's switch to energy.
Second.
Pardon me, did I miss somebody? Okay.
We just didn't hear what you said.
Oh, second. I got it. Would you support expansion of our domestic energy production to lower energy costs and create jobs?
Let's talk about energy, because I got a lot of it and my kids have even more. And our nation has a ton of energy resources. And you know how we promote energy and build energy and make it effective? Make our states and our communities profit from it and build jobs? We get the federal government out of it. The federal government doesn't decide what we in a state do with our energy. The federal government doesn't decide what we in a state do with our water or any of our resources. It always amazes me that I sit up here and I go to events and forums and I hear people talking about how we need to follow the Constitution, and then they turn around and talk about things that we're going to do to violate it. The Constitution tells the government what they can do. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that is the law for government. So how we get back to these, how we build our energy, we build our farms, is simple. We tell the federal government, get your hands off our families, our faith, our farms, and our freedom, and start doing your job. We need to restore the rule of law. We need to stop the anarchy from Congress that says we can do whatever we want because we flexed and bended the words in the Constitution to make it say something other than what it says. A representative who takes an action contrary to the delegated authority that we, the people, granted them is not representing. They're treading on liberty, and it's criminal. So all these things are important, but let's look for real solutions. Remember, this is the federal government that can't cook hot dogs. Let's not let them manage our resources and our energy in our state. Leave that up to the states where there can be accountability and control at a local level. That's what we need to get back to. Thank you.
Energy independence. That's one of the things that we have got to work towards achieving. Jobs, job creation, a thriving economy. Look at North Dakota. Who in the world would have thought 20 years ago that people would be flocking to North Dakota? They're the only state in the nation during the Great Recession that actually had a budget surplus. They can't build houses fast enough. People go there and they're making six figures that probably were struggling to pay their rent wherever they were living before that. It's an amazing story and something that I think we can replicate around the country if we remove restrictions, if we get the federal government out of the way. That's the answer. We can tell. And I hope I don't sound like, I'll be starting to become sounding alike on some of these things, I apologize. Tell the Saudis to keep their oil. We've got enough fossil fuels here for a long, long time. So I think that that's exactly what we need to do. It's one of the keys to our economic success. It's one of the keys to our future, and we've got to do it. It just, our nation, our future, and our security depend upon it.
Well, we're sitting here in Granite County, and I've lived out in Ritzville for many, many years. And of course, what made Granite County was two things. It was water, the project, and cheap power. Yeah, you were selling originally at about 0.8 cents, and we need to get back to that because that is what produces economic development. I don't know if Mr. Newhouse knew Director of Agriculture Alan Pettibone or not, but in 1988, I was sitting in the Spokane Convention Center in a three-piece suit, and I was a little bit smaller then. I can't fit in them anymore. But the next thing I know, he's up on a podium saying Glenn Stockwell's the state's number one authority, and it had something to do with power generation. So I had to look around and see whether there was anyone else going to stand up or not, But anyway, there's many alternatives. I grew up with a number 2 pencil, and these computers are giving us a new world to look at. I recently found out that there now is a process where we can actually burn salt water at 25,000 BTUs. And we have a large ocean between here and Saudi Arabia, and I think it's time to start using it. We need to go back to electric and also to hydrogen. Those two sources alone will give us total energy independence. And we have the technology already It's proven technology. Doc Hastings once said at the Lincoln dinner in Adams County, he didn't understand the oil cartels and et cetera. Well, it's very simple. After World War II, there are two people that control the oils around the world. One's named Rockefeller and one is Queen Beatrice. And they have control of probably 85% of all contracts around the world. And we need to rip that out of their hands before we'll ever get our independence. And so I am for expansion. We have many alternatives to get there, and all the technology is already available. Thank you.
There's so much talk about energy. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in 2 minutes, but I'll really try. And talk slow so you can hear me. First of all, I do favor an all of the above energy strategy. We need to pursue everything. Now, let me tell you, I'm from the Tri-Cities. Why did I come there? Because my dad's a nuclear physicist, and I'm a big nuclear guy. I'm greatly in favor of nuclear. I'd just like to point out to you the irony of the environmentalists, because really when we talk about energy problems, most of the energy problems are caused by environmentalists. And if you go back to the 1970s, the environmentalists effectively stopped nuclear in its tracks. What do environmentalists care about today? They care about greenhouse gas emissions. Well, guess what? If they hadn't stopped nuclear in their tracks back in the 70s, a lot of our electricity would be generated by nuclear, and we wouldn't have so many greenhouse gas emissions by burning coal for electricity. So just keep that in mind. As I was sitting here also realizing that all of us, of course, are in favor of generating new energy sources, I thought about, how can I really explain to you my thoughts about energy? And I never thought I'd do this up here, but I'm going to quote the Bible. The earth was put here for the benefit of man. It also answers why we're conservatives. We're stewards of this earth. We have a responsibility to use it reasonably, conservatively. In fact, I've always thought environmentalism should be a conservative issue. We don't think that the environment is sacred. It's here for our use, and we treat it respectably and create it. We generate energy from all the sources we have. So Keystone Pipeline, absolutely. Now, let's talk about another source, wind energy. I'll be honest, give me a break. There would not be a single windmill in this entire state were it not for tons of irrational federal government spending. They're trying to light a brush fire with wind, and it ain't working. Energy Northwest, they run a bunch of those windmills in addition to the Columbia Generating Station. Those windmills are about 20% efficient, whereas nuclear is about 95% efficient. Thank you.
Well, first off, as your state senator, I love energy issues. I've served on the Water, Energy, Telecommunications Committee. I'm also a graduate of the University of Idaho's Energy Policy Planning Program. And part of my proven track record already is I've been to bat, my voting record shows, to protect our hydropower dams and then fending off one-size-fits-all government approaches to helping with our energy issue. Helping is in quotes, such as cap and trade. So I've been a defender against those. Now, in regards to our energy policy, bottom line, our national security and our economic security as a nation depends on us not having to depend on foreign nations for our fuel. And our goal has to be energy independence. And I think we need a comprehensive approach, which has been definitely lacking for the last over 4 years, I'd say. First, we've got to reduce burdensome regulations. The EPA has a dangerous amount of authority right now, and we need to take that authority away from them and put it back into the hands of the people. We also need to increase the production of domestic oil while at the same time protecting our environment, and I know we can do it. We should complete the Keystone Pipeline. I think it's a safer way to transport our oil. We should also look at clean nuclear power, which right now the federal government is the huge obstacle in moving towards clean nuclear power. And then I'll finally say that we should continue to develop alternate sources of energy. And I'm proud here in Moses Lake that we've got REC Silicon when it comes to solar, and we've got natural gas here, we've got our hydropower dams. And again, as your representative in Congress, I will be your warrior and take the necessary leadership so we can have a comprehensive strategy when it comes to our energy policy, which is so important to our national security. And again, it's not gonna be this one-size-fits-all government regulation and approach, which is tax you, and it doesn't work. Thank you.
Can you ask that question again, please, because I think you were asking about the Columbia Basin and creating more energy here, did you not? Wasn't that the question about creating more energy here? Because I'm just going to refer to that.
You want me to read it back?
Sure, go ahead.
Would you support expansion of our domestic energy production to lower energy costs and create jobs?
That's what I thought the question was. Do you realize we're shipping a lot of our energy to California? Do you realize that they're shutting down some of the dams in order for those windmills to get their energy online? We are in an energy abundant area right now. The government is picking winners and losers. You see, we're paying for all those windmills. We're paying for the solar plants. As far as North Dakota, that's private property. That's why they're going after that oil there. And that's why I support the American Lands Council. Do you realize in western United States, the federal government still owns a lot of the land out here because when we became states, they were supposed to turn it over to us? I'm going to push for that. You see, if we have possession of those lands, we can create more money, we can use the resources, and we can utilize that. If you want to see this, come to me afterwards and I'll show you how red it is. Utah is 80% owned by the federal government. Now, the federal government was responsible for 4 things. It's in Article 1, Section 8 of your Constitution: national defense, post office and roads, coin and currency, and commerce between states and foreign nations. Now, where in that does it say energy? But we have the Department of Energy. We have the EPA. These are 2 more of the agencies I'm going to go after and defund. And believe me, I've already went back to D.C. twice. I've met with the Liberty Caucus, Jim Jordan, Tom Massey, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz. These are the 32 members of the Liberty Caucus. I vowed to them already that I'm going to join their caucus as soon as I get there. This is what they want to do. They want to start downsizing this federal government. I want to make sure John Boehner is not our Speaker of the House when we get back there. We already have a plan underway to make sure he's not our Speaker. And we'll get somebody with leadership that'll take on this administration. I've already got it in the works, folks. Just put me in the game.
Susan, do we have time for one more question before wrap up? Sure. One last question, candidates, before your 3-minute wrap up. I would assume that all of you believe thoroughly that you can't do what you've talked about tonight by yourself. And you've been looking into the eyes of your volunteers, your supporters, all evening. What would you ask them to do to help you? And I don't know where do we end up? Over here with Dan? Are you on deck?
So are you talking about the election or
To do your job
after the
if you are elected.
Thanks for the clarification. So you're absolutely right. The job of a congressman, the job of anybody representing people in a legislative body, you cannot do by yourself. The very word representative that tells me that you are representing the people. You are their voice. So you can't do it alone. If you did it alone, you shouldn't be there. You should be voted out immediately. So what would I ask people to do? I've said this on a number of occasions. In order for me to be a good congressman, a good representative, to be able to represent your voice, I need you to be a good constituent. I need to hear your voice. I need to understand what it is you think is a priority, your feelings on issues, positions that I should be taking to help you, to help me represent this great district that we live in. That's the only way it's going to work. A representative form of government is built on communication between the person who represents the people that would put him in office. And that's what I would do, to make sure that communication is strong, that it happens often. I know none of you are shy about communicating with people that are elected. I understand that. In fact, we get a lot of emails already. We're not even in office. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen, and we're going to be successful as a team together. But I think that's key, that communication, so that I know how you guys are feeling. Thank you.
Well, I know probably a lot of you may have voted for Doc in the past, and I'm really not hammering on Doc, but for the last 2.5 years now, I've offered to show him how to pay for these projects. He won't even make a phone call. And so either I look ignorant or something, I don't quite understand it, but it'll never happen if I go to Congress and you come to my office or you call me on the phone. And when I started this in 2009, our state was $8.5 billion in the red. I thought, he's going to call me, Didn't happen. It'll never happen if I take office. My mother and father taught me that I'm no better than anybody else and nobody else is better than me. I'm putting all of my salary into a non-profit corporation to give to kids to go to school. Because if you're around me very much, you'll realize that I served our country, I skipped college, I went for a little while, and I realized that education is a very good building block for people. But it's not the end-all to everything. I've kept my eyes open now for 64 years. I've always been stone sober. But anyway, what I will do, I'll guarantee, I'll swear to you that I will not allow anyone to go unanswered on any question. And I need your help to voice your concerns to me and tell me what it is I'm not realizing that needs to be changed or whatever on your mind. My door will always be open to you, no matter who you are, what area of the community you come from. I don't care whether you're sweeping a broom or whether you're a multi-billionaire. It makes no difference to me. I believe in one body and one soul, and I will treat everybody exactly the same.
During this campaign, I've been studying the words of President Lincoln quite a bit for various reasons that we don't have time to discuss now. But I'm thinking right now about the last sentence of the Gettysburg Address, when he charged that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, or of the people, for the people, and by the people, shall not perish from the earth. And that last quote, that government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people, that's what we need to work with when I'm in Congress. So what would I ask of you? I would say, first, stay engaged. Don't be apathetic. As I've run this campaign, I've realized I'm so grateful for the people who come to these meetings. And what do we have in here? 50 people? 75 maybe? What's the population of Grant County? A lot bigger. You guys are the leaders, and we need to turn to you to get your neighbors and friends and workmates, all of these folks, more engaged in the process. Because that's what our country asks of us, to be engaged and to be active participants in government. Number two, I'd ask you to invite me to your events, because I will come to every one that I can possibly make. Because my goal in serving you is that you will get to know me and you'll like me and you'll trust me. That's my version of campaign finance reform. I'm not going to have to raise too much money if I see you on a regular basis and you know me and you get to hear what I'm working on, and I'd much rather meet with you guys than be calling up people and asking them for money. Be honest about that. That's what I'd like you to do. Number three, I'd like you to keep my copy of my contract with Eastern Washington. Why? Because I want you to hold me accountable. That's part of why I wrote it. It's got these 10 steps. Clear demonstration of what I have committed to do to work for you in Congress. Doesn't do any good if we all forget about it. That's why I wrote it down. There's too many politicians who make too many promises and time lapses, and nobody remembers what they said. Nobody holds them accountable. I want to hold myself accountable to you, and I hope that you will hold me accountable to you as well. And I look forward to keeping the commitments that I've made to you serving in Congress. Thank you.
And what I would say to my bosses is that I'd like you to do the same thing you've been already doing as I'm your state senator. You guys are the best bosses that anyone could ever have. And you guys are not afraid to drive over the mountains, testify. You are my experts, by the way. And that's one thing I will mention is that, you know, while paid lobbyists are great and there's good ones and bad ones, just like politicians, I prefer to get my expertise from my bosses, the people that I'm accountable to, that are in the trenches, on the ground, having to deal with the regulations that are being put onto them by their government. So I want you to be my experts. As the chair of Commerce and Labor Committee, when the auto dealer bill came through my committee, I talked to the lobbyist, Scott Hazelgrove, but I also picked up the phone and called my auto dealers and said, hey, is this really the solution we're looking for, or do we need to make some changes? So I want you to be my experts. Prayers. Keith Easterly, he's my prayer warrior, one of them. There's many of you here in this room. Prayers are awesome. And then bottom line, this is a team sport. And it really is it takes us all at all levels of government and throughout our communities and families that if we really want to change the national legacy for the better for our next generations and protect our constitutional rights and our Christian principles, it is a team effort. And with me, you get a team player. So no issue is going to be too small for me. And together, I know we're going to be able to make those positive changes. And I think the hardest part for me, this is my last year as your state senator, and God willing, I'll be serving you in Congress, is it's going to be the distance between us. But I know we can overcome it, and you're still going to be such an integral part of the process. And the way we're going to overcome it, folks, is I'm going to be accessible to you. So again, I'm the first state senator, I think, from this district that has a district office day each month during the interim in each of her counties. So I'm sitting there in Lincoln County, Kittitas County, Yakima County, and Grant County, so I'm accessible to my bosses because I never will forget who I work for, and that's how we're going to overcome the distance when I'm in DC. But bottom line, this is a team sport, and I look forward to being your warrior, and thanks for playing.
I can relate to a team sport too.
I thought you would like that.
I did. I really did. And I tell you what, you're exactly right, Janae. It is a team sport. And we're members of the team. Now, how am I going to be effective? I've already told you, I've been to D.C. twice. I just talked to Jim Jordan the other day, talked to Tom Massey. I'm joining that coalition. That's the first step. Second, education. That's why I ran for office in 2010. I ran for U.S. Senate. I got clipped up by the Republican Party. So then I took on a Democrat in the Lands Commissioner race because no Republican would step up and run against him, and I couldn't let him run unopposed. And I learned. And then I feel like I educated. I went out and talked to people about our natural resources and how they're managing fires to make money instead of putting them out. Take a little idea what they're doing out there, folks. They're not trying to put them out. There's big money in fires. You know what? We do got to fight as a team because this is a team effort. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I get back to D.C., every bill that I vote on, I'm going to put on Facebook. I'll put the bill on the Facebook. This is what Justin Amash does. He puts every bill on Facebook. He explains it. He tells you how he votes, and then you can reply to it. I will do the same. I will put everyone on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, either we fight as a team and we fight together, or we will die as individuals.
The first step I'm going to do here is surround myself with staff that can help me work for the Constitution, for the people of this district, and stand up for liberty, help us root out corruption and name names. And then continuing to working with representatives who value our liberty, that we can work together and take a stand. A small and tireless minority can get a great deal done in Congress. But next is those unstoppable conversations that I talked about earlier, and that comes back to starting those conversations and getting people all over the district. It's that voice that is the most powerful thing. You know, it's interesting because this week here in Moses Lake, the city officials were mad at me because I refused to sign a contract with them in order to put signs out in public property. Hello, Gavin, do you have a permit for that free speech? No, and I don't need one. And when this came out, the outpouring of support from the community, the people rallying together and saying, we will not tolerate this. We, the people, need to start standing up for our God-given liberty. So that's the extension of just a representative staff, a representative who's really represents the people. He communicates. He does account for every vote. And he gets those conversations going. Make no mistake, folks. If we don't start standing up for our liberty now, our children and our grandchildren will do so at the price of blood. Thank you.
In wrapping up, I think we start with Mr. Stockwell. 3 minutes, and please feel free to come out and take center stage if you're so inclined.
Well, not like Ronnie Millsap. He has a 2x4 out there, so he doesn't go beyond it. So I don't think I'll come too far out. Well, I come to stand before you today on the issue that I've been pushing for 5 years now, repeatedly, again and again and again, and that's bringing the Columbia Basin Project here. And I can bring it here without any new taxes, with pre-existing monies. I'll have those monies within 2 years. And I'm a firm believer that if I'm elected, you should hold me responsible for what I say. If you elect me, and I go back there and I do not hold my word with you, fire me. That's what I would do if I was in your spot. And what we need to do, as far as I can see, I agree with beginning to know these people up here. We have a very fine group of people here. And they are true conservatives, and so am I. And what we need to do is reverse. You know, everyone, it's not apathy. People no longer trust government. And that happened many years ago when I was 13 years old, on November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. And the whole country turned away, and et cetera, and we've been losing faith ever since. What happened, they not only killed him, they took over the presidency, in my opinion. I've studied history for 35 years. And what we need to do, after Johnson took control of it, he centralized government. And these people are correct. Now we need to decentralize it to get the power back to the state. And that's what I will work for. But I will, in fact, have the money for these projects. We've been waiting now for 3 generations, almost. If I die here today, it'll be 3. But anyway, and I know where the money's at. We will not have to wait any longer. And if you would vote for me, I would consider, I would really like to be your congressman. If you go to my website, I have a gentleman that has a song about my campaign now. He's a friend. He's an ice road trucker from Alaska. He ran for governor up in Alaska. His name is Singing Sam. But anyway, if you'd trust me, you'd find out in 1988, Adams County trusted me. If you go on my website, you'll see that the entire community trusted me. And I came through with what I told them in 2.5 years. I came through with the project that I told them I would succeed at. And if you would trust me for 2 years, I will come back. I will have the money in hand in trust accounts to put these projects in. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I second the words of Mr. Stockwell. He's right. Think about how fortunate we are to live in a district that has all of these conservatives, one of whom is going to be your next congressman. Any one of us can do a great job. And we all bring a different set of skills to the table, and we're all appealing to you to help you understand the skills that we bring. And so here's what I'm asking of you tonight. I'm saying, if you will send me to Congress, I'll bring 20 plus years of expertise to help bring about real reforms in government. Now, these reforms will have an immediate positive impact in your lives and in the lives of other citizens around this country. The way that I'm different with other candidates at the table, and we're all good candidates, but the way that I'm different is that everybody else asks for your vote without providing a concrete plan of action. You've seen me hold it up here several times today. I ask for your vote with a clear, detailed contract that I offer to you as voters for your review and approval. It's a promise to work for you in Congress openly, with full participation by all people in the district, if you'll accept my offer to serve you. I'd ask you to read the contract. If you get a copy of it, you might get a copy in the mail this week. If not, you can look on my website and read it. But save it as a roadmap to the future for my service for you in Congress. The roadmap as we work to what? Fix our healthcare crisis, balance our federal budget, and defend the Constitution. When other candidates ask you to look in the rearview mirror at their past efforts, I'd like you to ask them, where is your roadmap for our future? Today, again, you've received a contractual roadmap from me. I want you to know that local leaders, like the CEO of the largest healthcare system in our district, as well as our current congressman's own brother, Roger Hastings. They've endorsed my skills. They've known me for years, and they know my work habits, and they know everything about me, and they know my ability to actually get done the promises that I make. So, what future is it that we're working toward? What vision of leadership? A vision of the future where healthcare is affordable without governmental incentives, where the budget balances rather than burdening our kids and grandkids with tremendous mountains of debt, and a future that continues to be governed by the Constitution that doesn't, our Constitution is great for us, but guess what? It's also the model for every democracy around the world. And yet, what's going on in DC right now? It's getting disrespected at every turn. Again, if we want a constitutional republic for our children, we've got to elect leaders who will continue to defend that Constitution. So I'd like to encourage you let you know that I told you I've been reading a lot of Lincoln lately. And so like Lincoln, our first Republican president, I will act to defend the higher ideals that we know our country was established to protect. And like Lincoln, you and I will work to defend our nation as we act, quote, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, to bind up the nation's wounds, close quote. I'll work to restore accountability to Congress, to end the federal government's cycle of overreach and constitutional disdain, and to restore the bonds of trust between the people and their elected representatives. Again, I'm George Seacott, and I would be extremely grateful for your vote. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Senator Janaea Holmquist, and thank you so much for this honor and pleasure to join you tonight. And I know it took time away from your family, loved ones, businesses to join us, and I think this is so important. Bottom line, folks, I'm here to earn your vote and your support to represent you in Congress. And while we have quite a large group of conservatives in this race, what you gain with me is that proven track record to back up my promises and my commitments and my Republican ideals and my ideas. And beyond that, I've been able to show you that it's possible to stand strong to your core principles and still get things accomplished, and we need more of that in Congress. And folks, you know me, I'm not a wallflower Republican. I'm your warrior out front on issues such as DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, pro-life issues, whether it be combating this year the increase in the minimum wage. No issue is going to scare me. I've had experiences to stand up to special interests, and I think you probably agree with me, but one of the most potent special interests in many cases is your own leadership. So folks, when Speaker Boehner says, Holmquist, get in line and take your dose of tax increases, I'm going to say, no, thank you. I don't work for you. I work for the citizens of Washington State. Now, thank you. I've also been blessed with the experience of leading in the majority and the minority. So I haven't always been the chair of the Commerce and Labor Committee, and even before then, serving in a super minority status when the Democrats were in charge of the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion, I was still able to reach across the aisle and pull them along to our ideals by improving our business climate with historic workers' comp reform. And that was the greatest improvement to our industrial insurance system in over 100 years. And that was from me working from a super minority status. So that's some of that tenacity and grit, that farm girl, go get ya attitude you're gonna get with me with all of the issues. Bottom line, my proven track record's been recognized by a lot of citizen groups, and I feel so honored and blessed. I've been recognized as the Legislator of the Year from the Washington Farm Bureau 2 years in a row, which is an unprecedented honor. This year, I had a 100% voting record with the Washington Retail Association. Just this week, I was so humbled by the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business, calling me their Outstanding Legislator of the Year for the second time for being a guardian of small business men and women in our state. I've also, for this race, received the highest NRA rating in protecting your Second Amendment rights and the endorsements from groups such as the Washington Trucking Association, the Human Life PAC, the Washington State Patrol Troopers Association, the Douglas County Republicans, the Hunters Heritage Council, and the list goes on. You can get that on my website. But most importantly, I'm here tonight to ask you, my current bosses as your state senator, to put your trust in me and let's work together to improve our national legacy for our next generation, and I know we can do it. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. God bless.
I too want to thank you for coming out. And please, if you do nothing else tonight, go inspire some other people to get involved. And if you would, please take 30 seconds tonight, just 30 seconds, kneel and pray for this country. If we don't ask God to restore our great representative republic, it won't happen. We have to include him. It was part of the founding of this country, and we got to bring it back forth. Now, freedom. I talked about it earlier. Freedom was a byproduct of individual liberty. And our founders intended for individual liberty to be at the heart and soul of this country. That's what America's all about, is being free. Now, you've heard a lot up here about experience. I got to tell you, I'm a farmer. I've ran for office twice. I've never served in an office yet. I would like to be put into the game. I'd like you to see what I could do. But I'm not an expert on nothing. You're hearing people claim they're experts. I'm not. I do try to fill my mind full of a lot of knowledge, but I can't claim to be an expert of anything. But I do have common sense. I'm a farmer. I know how to balance a book. I know how to run a farm, and I run an excavation business. And I know how to make my knuckles bloody when I have to work. So I like to work, and I want to work for you. What's the Didier campaign all about besides guns? Because yes, I gave away 3 of them away, and that was your right, your opportunity, and I hope you participated, to show those people over in Olympia and to show those people back in DC, back off of our Second Amendment. This is why I did it. I wanted people to come on and engage and participate and show the numbers that we are never going to waver from our Second Amendment. I hope you participated. If you didn't, there might be another opportunity down the road. We have a simple equation in the Didier campaign. More government equals less freedom. Less government equals more freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we got to do. We got to downsize this federal government. When I traveled back there from when I played, this place is getting bigger and bigger. You're going block buildings, and every one of those buildings is an agency. Let's talk about the VA for a second. Fox News reported 432,000 employees in the VA. No wonder our vets aren't getting anything done. They're not getting anything for them. It's all going to administrative costs. I say shrink it to 5,000, and let's give all the rest of those salaries, retirement funds, benefits, and everything to the veterans so they can go to the doctor and hospital of their choice. Let's start downsizing these agencies. Now my time is up. DidierForCongress.org. You'll see all my endorsements and the rest, so please go there. DidierForCongress.org.
Well, this has been great tonight, and I want to thank the workers here for putting this on and you guys for attending. Does anyone here have a gas can? Yeah, well, if you've bought a gas can in the past few years, you've probably noticed that it doesn't work. The spout, when you try to use it, it spills gas over the side of your car. Now consider that this federal government we're dealing with is the one that can't manage their budget or their border, but they want to dictate our health care, our water, our energy, and every other aspect of our life. We need to get legal. We need to get back to principle and prayer and our God-given liberty. Those 3 little monkeys in the back of the room, those are who we're supposed to be standing up for. We're supposed to be the sentinels of liberty, America. That's what we were tasked with. What happened? There's all this talk about what can the federal government do for me? What can they fund? How can we get money from them? Well, I think we all know that who writes your paycheck is your master. We need to get legal. We need a real plan that starts with 100% constitutional voting, standing on principle, and unstoppable conversations. What do you want from America? Because I want my country back. I want that American dream, and I am tired of tyranny everywhere I look. Folks, liberty's not something to be hidden away in dusty shelves. We should be teaching it to our children and grandchildren. We should be holding it up in front of us every single day of our lives, and if we are not, we are failing our posterity. It's not about what can government give me or what can they do for me. It's about what can I do for liberty, what can I do for our children's freedom, and how can we take it back? Now, if you want more of the same, it's going to be easy to get it. I'm not your typical candidate. I'm going to turn Washington, D.C. on its ear. Because I, for one, am tired of tyrants who think that they can tread on this liberty. Folks, my name is Gavin Syme. You can find me at callmegav.com. Remember and teach your children and your grandchildren. Liberty is not the fringe. Liberty is the foundation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. My name is Dan Newhouse. I got to tell you, I have mixed feelings about the election coming up because these opportunities to meet on the same stage with these fine people are coming to an end. I got to tell you, I very much enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, and I hope the people of this district have benefited from these forums. So thank you for having this. Now, I'm a very optimistic person. You know, to be a farmer, you've got to be. And I think our country, our great country, can have a great future. But ladies and gentlemen, we are truly at a crossroads in this country. In order to achieve that great future, we've got to have the right people in place to make the decisions to make that future come true. Now the question was, why should you vote for me? What makes me different? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm a businessman. I'm a farmer. I know what it's like to lay awake at night wondering if I'm going to be able to pay the bank back. I know how to sign, I've signed thousands of the front of paychecks. I know how to balance books too. I know how to run a business. So I think that's something that's worth noting. Many members of Congress don't have that history. I was a state representative. I represented a large part of this congressional district in Olympia. I know the issues because they're my issues. I think that bodes well for me. As a director of a state agency, I know how the other part of government works. I work to make my agency more efficient. I reduced the budget. I stood up for the industry, agriculture, against federal agencies, and I represented it abroad, trying to promote trade, increase agricultural exports, which doubled while I was in office. I know how to work with people. As a Republican in this state, in Olympia, if you are not willing to work with people that you may not even like, certainly you don't agree with, you're not going to get anything done. And I know you can do that without sacrificing those principles that you believe in. I'm a person that wants solutions. There are critical issues that this country faces that need action. For far too long, Congress has stood for inaction. I want to move us forward. I want answers to those questions that we need answered so that we can move forward and we can attain that greatness that I know is in store for our country. The election is soon, less than a month. Ballots go out next week. So when you get your ballot and you sit down and go to fill out that box, I hope you would consider Dan Newhouse. I would look very much forward to representing this great district of this great state in this great country in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for Congress from the state of Washington to the United States of America. On your feet.